The frigid winds of Clyre 9 howled outside the expedition tent, rattling its metallic frame. Darren sat inside, nursing a cup of synthetic cocoa, his breath forming faint clouds in the sub-zero air. The storm had rolled in faster than expected, forcing the crew to scatter and find shelter. He had lost contact with the others hours ago. Suddenly, a shadow flickered against the tent wall. Darren froze, his hand hovering over the plasma knife clipped to his belt. The shadow stumbled closer, and a faint, muffled voice broke through the wind. "Help!" The zipper of the tent slid down slowly, and a slender figure pushed through the gap. Darren blinked, his grip loosening on the knife. The figure was a girl, or rather something close enough to pass as one. Her pale lavender skin glimmered faintly, and her large, feline-like eyes locked onto him. She was wrapped in a tattered thermal cloak, clearly unfit for the brutal storm outside. "Close the tent," he barked, rushing to pull her inside and zip the flap shut behind her. The temperature in the tent was barely tolerable, but it was better than the icy death outside. "Thanks," she murmured, collapsing onto the floor. Her voice was melodic, though tinged with exhaustion. Darren grabbed a spare thermal blanket and threw it over her. "Who are you? What are you doing out here?" he asked, crouching down beside her. "I'm Mira," she said between shivers. "Surveyor. Got caught in the storm. My craft crashed a few kilometers from here." Darren frowned. He'd heard rumors of Clyre 9 being surveyed by alien factions, but this was the first time he'd seen one up close. Her physiology was humanoid, but her features were distinctly alien. Her skin seemed to ripple faintly with emotion, and her fingers were tipped with delicate, claw-like nails. "All right, Mira, just sit tight. I've got a heating pad somewhere," Darren said, rummaging through his gear. He passed her the pad, which he held against her chest gratefully. Minutes passed in silence as the storm raged outside. Darren couldn't help but study her, marveling at her otherworldly beauty and the faint bioluminescence of her skin. She caught him staring and smiled faintly. "Never seen someone like me before, huh?" she asked, her voice warming slightly. "Not up close," Darren admitted. "Didn't think you'd look so human." Mira laughed softly. "We adapt to blend in, especially when exploring. Easier to make friends." The tension eased a little, and they exchanged stories of their respective expeditions. Mira was a scout for her people, searching for habitable worlds. Darren was an ex-soldier turned surveyor, charting the harsh terrains of Clyre 9 for mining potential. As the conversation flowed, Darren noticed something odd. Mira's skin was growing warmer, uncomfortably so. Her bioluminescence pulsed in rhythmic waves, and her breathing became labored. "Mira, are you all right?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. She doubled over, clutching her chest. "The cold, it's triggering a hibernation response. My body is reacting poorly. I need warmth, more warmth." Darren's training kicked in. Without thinking, he moved to her side and wrapped her in his arms, sharing his body heat. Her skin felt like a furnace now, radiating heat that made him sweat despite the frigid air. "Darren," she whispered, her voice trembling. "There's something you should know. My kind, when we get close like this, we bond. Emotionally, physically. It's irreversible." He pulled back slightly confused. "What do you mean, bond?" Her glowing eyes locked onto his, filled with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "I mean, I'll be connected to you. Forever. Our lives will intertwine. If you keep holding me like this, there's no going back." Darren hesitated, the gravity of her words sinking in. Outside, the storm howled louder, a reminder of their shared vulnerability. He looked into her eyes and saw something he hadn't felt in years: trust, hope, and an odd sense of destiny. "I'm not letting you freeze," he said firmly, tightening his embrace. Mira sighed, her body relaxing against his. The heat radiating from her began to stabilize, and a soft glow enveloped them both. Darren felt an odd warmth spread through his chest, not just from her body, but from something deeper, something primal. When the storm finally subsided hours later, Darren unzipped the tent and stepped outside, Mira close behind him. The landscape was transformed, covered in a glistening layer of ice and snow. "Thank you," Mira said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "You've given me more than you know." As they set off to find the others, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't fully understand. Whatever this bond was, it was only the beginning.